I was on with you last night a little bit, and
Yeah.
we were like just kind of like seeing the stuff people are talking about today, this sort of post-election kind of like everybody
Yeah.
trying to figure out what happened and all this stuff. To me, like, I think that the top maybe three things are integral to each other.
Yeah.
The economy,
Immigration.
immigration. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's a third one. Let's just use those two for a second. Economy and immigration. Those two things are based in like the opinion of the people who voted certain in Trump's direction. It's entirely based on lies. And misinformation, I guess you would say, but lies perpetrated by Trump. It's not true that there are as many immigrants as he says there are. It's not true that they're murdering people. It's not true that the borders are open and all this stuff.
Right.
Same thing with the economy. We talk about the economy a ton. Why does everybody think the economy is terrible when by all metrics it's good? It's because they're telling them every single day on Fox News. So why wouldn't they, right? So my point with this is that the method that is being told to people is coming entirely through social media, through phones, through all this stuff, and we basically got Brexit. Brexit did.
Totally.
We got Brexited, and we did. It happened in 16. It happened in 20. It was happening. It's been happening for 4 to 8 years. And so how do you fix that? And a lot of people are like, well, we can't. Dems need to make their own Fox News, and it's Dems' fault that this happened. And I fully disagree with that. Like, how can you compete with the flood of lies that people choose to believe? You can't convince them.
It's because of a finite amount of truth. That's the the problem you're up against, is that there is a finite amount of truth and an infinite number of lies.
Yes. So how do you fix that? You make everybody not have, you outlaw bots, or you tell them when it's fake. And we've talked about this before. That deluge of everything that people see, it will be cut at least in half, probably 3/4, if you simply just told everybody that it wasn't a real person telling them that, or it wasn't. It was an outside actor. It was a foreign actor. But all of this stuff that's building up these stories, it's Elon Musk's Twitter funded by Russia. Like, it's so obviously in front of us. And so there's simple fixes that we can make. We don't need to like reprogram everybody. We just need to like fix the truth.
Well, and part of it is that recognition that there is a finite number of truths and an infinite number of lies, and that when and all we ask is that if I'm talking to a bot, I want to know it's a bot. That should be simple. And that's even a bill you could probably, even though Elon Musk would probably tell Trump to veto it, I think it would be hard for him to do. If it passed through the House and the Senate, it would get signed into law.
So I think that's toast for the next 4 years. We got to come up with a different way to deal with that. But if you connect up kind of the fears of the economy, fears of immigration, and then the last one is, the story is that Latino men, young Latino men, you say pull up the ladder kind of people, they switched for Trump, or they switched over to Trump. That is entirely related to the immigration, which is entirely related to the lie. Like everything, it's all interconnected. Still there. So
agreed.
We got pants by our own social media.
And this also, Jesus Christ. So insofar as the Latino men kind of stuff, when Tucker Carlson talks about they're trying to replace our culture, with stuff that isn't our culture, That's who they're talking about. They're talking about Hispanics coming from South America and Haitians and black people, certainly from Congo and whatever else. But in large part, they're talking about South American, Hispanic, and Latino people coming into the United States and changing our culture into this fucking taco truck. The way they talk about it. That's what they, and they're like, we got to stop. We got to go back to the version of our culture that was indigenous to the area, circa 1935 through 1985, whatever that window, right? The entire span. They're good with the entire span of the Back to the Future movies, right? Anything that happened in those movies, that's the American culture they want to have. That's natural to hear. And that bringing in all these Hispanics is changing our culture. There's if you go to certain parts of town, it's all in Spanish. You go to, Chinatown is cute, but once it spreads in, you've got Chinese signs in other neighborhoods. Fuck that. Monterey Park in Los Angeles, outside of Los Angeles, which has, Chinese signs. They're like, whoa, right? That's their reaction, right? When they're talking about they're trying to come in and take our culture, replace our culture, we're being replaced. That's what they mean. And Latino men just voted in mass to go, yeah, fuck those guys. And then yeah, you first, dummy. It's the weirdest thing because they don't care. They're not going to make a distinction that you speak perfect English without a Spanish or a Mexican accent or any of this. They're not going to care. It's where you came from and what you look like and what your root culture is. That is what's going to freak them out and what they want to get rid of.
I hate to be super dark here, but ham-handed Trump everything. Like, they always take the easy path. They always look for the low-hanging fruit. So if they promised that they were going to deport whatever number he said, 5,
right.
10, 20, whatever. Who are the first one? The first ones they're going to go for are the ones they already know who they are.
Yep.
Like, why would they spend the time looking for people that they don't know who they are when they know where a whole bunch of them are? They're going to take the low-hanging fruit. Like, they're TPS
people,
the win.
People on temporary protective status and people on DED, they're going to revoke all that shit and bust them out immediately. The other thing, too, is if you're in a household with somebody who's on one of those things, they're going to start assuming or asking around, is everybody else in that house sketchy? They're going to come in through and have believe me, Trump and his ilk will do some sort of knock order where, if we know you've got somebody on temporary protected status, one of the things that's part of that is we're going to have to do a site inspection, which means we're going to come through your whole house and do a fucking wall bang and see if you're hiding anybody like churches used to hide people in the basement, during the Holocaust. They're going to check all that shit. They are. Right?
Yeah. He wants the win. Like, he wants the easy wins.
Yes.
Because he doesn't work for anything. He wants to be like, I said this and we did this and here's the numbers, and he'll probably lie about the numbers as well. Like,
totally.
If he
the other issue I have too,
he's going to say he deported 5 million.
Totally, because they aren't here. That's the other thing, is there's not nearly as many as they say. Right. And when they stop finding them, they're going to go, they all left because they were scared. Right. That shit. Right.
And then they're going to say, hey, you guys can come back. And then they're going to deport them again and say they did it twice, or say, 5 became 10 overnight. It's right. He's shown us who he is. And
I think one of the issues that is concerning in this, is Elon Musk meets Stephen Miller. Those guys together, that's some shit straight out of, the Final Solution stuff.
Yeah. I don't know how it happens, but we're on the edge of some very dangerous things when, these individual people who run these large companies, maybe, with money that's maybe theirs, probably not, most people, the saying is you run a business on somebody else's money, right? Get rich off of somebody else's money. So they, none of them have the real money. Anyway, my point is Blue Origin, Tesla, these are places. There's a lot of these companies that are sort of becoming these industry kind of titans, and they flow through these individual people. And those people are basically sitting in Mar-a-Lago or in the White House now. Yep. Because, Bezos told his he's just going to basically say, look, I did my endorsement thing in the Washington Post. That was for you, Trump. Now pay me back.
Right.
I need a Blue Origin contract. That starts to get really scary, and I don't know how we police that, because it's probably going to be the Wild West for, the next few years.
I
Sure.
think it's going to be chaotic as fuck, because I feel like they are the dog that caught the car, and they don't have any idea how any of this shit's going to go. And Trump doesn't understand a fucking word that comes out of Elon Musk's mouth. And most of his is like shit he heard from his own engineers via telephone, or his own bullshit story, right? There is, there's a myriad of reasons where this,
I would like to also, though, there's this thing that happens, like, I'm not saying anything bad about you. I'm just saying, like, in this show, you like show a lot of things. You show a lot of robots, and they're moving fast, and it's really easy to get caught up in that. And it's so easy, like it's just going to happen.
No, it isn't.
It is very difficult. It's very difficult to get these systems working and working reliably. And you can see that in SpaceX, it's kind of working. But it's off the back of NASA and a lot of engineers and that knew that stuff. And this is a little side, but the chopstick, like the way Trump talks about the heavy getting caught by the chopsticks.
Oh, yes, right. His rocket, it's going boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And like, I was talking to a guy and I hung up the phone. I forgot all about him. Yeah, it's a story. It's great.
So many articles made that about Elon Musk is so brilliant, he figured out how to grab a rocket with chopsticks. Like, there's no difference between that rocket coming down on a barge in the middle of the ocean,
right,
and it coming down on that spot and getting, like, the only difference is chopsticks versus landing on its
right,
feet, right.
There
is a huge difference, though, and that is if that thing's coming down for the chopsticks and something goes wrong, it shoots off and maybe hits a house, right?
Yes.
In the middle of the ocean, it just dumps in the ocean and everybody's cool, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just saying that, like, Musk wants to, like, what is it, Omni that's his? Which is the robot that's his? What's the
Optimus.
Musk robot? Optimus. Sorry. So he's, like, trying to say that this is all real and it's fake so he's just like Trump is for stakes, but he's like just got cooler stuff, right?
Yeah, it's the salesman aspect of it, right? Yeah,
I don't know how Elon Musk does it. It's almost like two like clowns like trying to figure out how they're gonna like get government contracts and take the money because they're gonna
or
share
use a tax break.
I don't see how Musk like figures out how to make this stuff work when you've got like serious people like Boston Dynamics and these other you've got very serious people that very smart and have been working on this very hard. They're ready to go.
Yes.
And they've got the engineers and the systems in place to do that stuff. So somehow, some way, that's going to have to get distributed, and there's going to be a lot of people going for it because it's the new automobile, in my opinion. Like,
agreed.
The automotive factories, you could convert those right over right now to be mass producing robotics. Like,
right. And then again, depending on the dexterity of the robots and their capability, how small and fine you end up getting their digits and how long in the NVIDIA Eureka, how long it takes them to learn something. You can have them assemble anything a human can do with their fingers, right? And anything that can happen in a factory, which requires a human being taking a piece and carefully putting it in something like a lithography machine or something like that. Running a lithography machine, a robot could do making chips all fucking day. That's what NVIDIA does. NVIDIA's lithography machines are run by robots. In
that case, they're like, it's kind of like a big printer, sort of, kind of like oven printer, and the robotics basically just move things from place to place.
They just move the pallets.
A Gen 10 LCD factory that was entirely robotic. It was like being in the Matrix, where you like look down the aisle and there's like all the people. It was kind of like that, all the people in the pods. It was kind of like that for lithography machines. It was insane. This was LCDs, sorry, but it's still the same process,
totally,
or similar process. Anyway, and
by the way, this is Digit,
like 7-story like robots moving pieces of glass around. It was crazy.
You're right. Yeah, this is Digit. This is the robot that is moving those boxes. That's a factory in Atlanta. The first place robots actually took jobs in the United States, literally doing the backbreaking work of lifting shit up and putting it places, which was the worst part of the job for all these people, is in Georgia. Not far, by the way, from Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. Marjorie Taylor Greene's only job growth in her district came from an EV battery facility that was put there by the infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act that Biden put in place.
Right.
3,000 jobs, and they all came from Biden in her district. They only exist because of that. And this dizzy bitch is going to lose all those jobs to Digit bots and Tesla bots, more than likely, because he'll muscle his way to the front, and all these right wingers, just like they're buying Cybertrucks, will insist on Optimus doing all these jobs it can't fucking do, while all these other companies that can get their shit done are doing real work for Boeing and BMW and shit like that.
So we try to explain, and it's difficult to do because this is complex. Like, we try to explain how adding automation doesn't eliminate jobs.
No.
It changes the jobs you're doing. The same people are there doing a different job, excuse me.
A lot of it just takes the
Trump and
hard
Musk
part
are so
out.
ham-handed. Like, I don't know how they're going to walk this line of you got all this stuff coming from China to build these robots that are going to take your job, but it's not really taking your job. It's taking migrants. You see what I'm getting at? Like, this is a disaster waiting to happen, and it's coming a freight train.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, Elon Musk, his robots are bullshit, and they were walked with, they were controlled secondarily. And again, we've talked about how that's amazing technology, but it's not a living robot thinking on its own the way he proposed it. It's bullshit because it was for show. If he'd have just been honest about it, it's one thing, but he wasn't. The issue that I have is that here these things come rolling down the street. And what are they but rows and rows of undocumented workers? Because what the hell, right? They don't have documentation.
Run over you.
Yeah, they're not citizens. They're not going to. They can't take an oath to the flag. They can, but they also don't need Social Security at any particular point. This is the Poodoo D7, by the way, which is a great name for something. This is another. This is a Poodoo. Yeah, it's very Star Wars. The Poodoo, which has no legs but uses wheels and grippers, is just a stocking bot, basically. But again, think about this. Think about the person that stocks shelves at your local grocery store.
Yeah, that's all it needs to be.
That's all it needs to be. Doesn't need legs, doesn't need anything else.
To not have all the servos needed to articulate.
Absolutely.
The legs.
Yep. And this, and getting rid of the empties, filling other stuff up, collecting garbage. It can't get its finger cut and get an infection from going through the garbage, so it can sort, recycling. There's all kinds of shit, right? So the point I'm trying to make with this little guy is this is a cheap knockoff. This is a Chinese knockoff, the Poodoo Robotics. This is a month ago. This shit didn't exist last year either. This is all horseshit. They just made this thing up borrowing technology. And they all show them taking elevators and going around the building. That's always a big part of it. And I'm sure there's a dude just doing this, whatever. But the point is, eventually it will be autonomous. And this is a knockoff of the Figure One. Like, they're just using basically the look of it for this. That's how see how this guy is operating it? He's using an Apple Vision Pro. Mm-hmm. That's what was happening. That's why I wanted to show this. This is what Elon Musk's guys were doing.
Yeah,
and that's how they learned
remote control, basically.
Yeah, and that's how they were learning to do shit. This is the MT1, which is a cleaning robot. Which is
actually a valid way of doing it. Like, the sort of code that it takes to articulate really subtle movements, let's say in your hand, right? Like, in order to get those movements, you need to come up with code that's going to drive that. And so what Eureka does, or what a human could do, is it could do those tasks 5, 10, 15, 20 times. Mm-hmm. And then what our large language models or machine learning does is it figures out which one of those are the most efficient or look right or whatever. And it picks the different variations of those and puts them into a movement that does a thing, right? And then what the large language model does is it says, pick up the apple. you say to it, pick up the apple, and it decides, it looks and it sees, well, it identifies what the apple is. Large language models can do that, or in this case, like image-based Gen AI. And then it chooses what motion it's going to take to go pick up that apple, right? So these things all interconnect with each other, and they're both in and out, in inputs and outputs, all using kind of all these different technologies combined.
The point I'm trying to make with a lot of these things is I just want to have people think of like
my son's stealing my sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's understandable.
He's stealing my headphones.
Understood.
He's like, I got to play my game and you're being too loud, Dad.
Yeah, understood. Think of all, there are going to be jobs that are eliminated, and quite a few of them. And again, the first ones that will be eliminated and nobody will bat a fucking eye is the ones that we normally associate with people that cleaning people, for example, like this one, immigrants coming in and doing stuff, the jobs Americans don't want to do. Well, those are the primary focus of Elon Musk and his ilk. These are the jobs nobody wants to do because they're dangerous, they're backbreaking, they're exhausting, they're repetitive, they're uninspiring, they're shitty. And so why would any human want to do them? But least of all, why would we import a human to do it if we can get a machine to do it? And so that's all they are focused on. And so getting rid of these people and going, holy fuck. So let's extrapolate this out. And this is why I was making the point about Operation Wetback and the Eisenhower administration during a time when they...
We're getting to the end of the weave.
Yes, that's right. I would see how that boom, boom, and bing, bong, bing. The reason they started brooming these folks is because they had outlived their usefulness. They brought in, these guys came in to do some farming, and then after they'd been there for a little while, they're like, we don't need you guys, beat it. The ladies can stay. The ladies can stay because they can pick the fruit. And that's what happened. Remember those pictures from you can even see it in the 50s and 60s. Is these women walking around with baskets, picking all the fruit. These, the women started coming because they were less scary and harmful and I suppose sexually attractive, whatever your reasoning is. And the men would get broomed out of the country. That was part of what Operation Wetback was. Because you guys are being replaced with a thresher and with a plow machine that does 6 rows at a time. We don't fucking need you anymore. And the same thing is true of... That's what this is. That's what that fucking thing is. This is the modern thresher.
Yeah, the connection is really interesting, Cal.
And you broom them out, and then everybody goes, where the fuck am I going to get workers to blah, blah, blah? And in swoops the companies. Well, you don't need a person to do this. This device, my friend, with a maintenance contract, you don't even have to buy it. You can lease it. You will own nothing and be happy, right? That's what they're talking about.
Somebody in the chat mentioned they just made a comment that they were in. I can't find it. I don't know who it was. Sorry. I'm not saying your name. They said that they did construction around a Gillette factory, and they fully automated their packaging. And he said that they went from 500 cars in the parking lot to about 30 or 40.
Right.
And yes, now. What probably happened after that is they moved that they started making those things in China. The 30 and 40 cars went to 0 because 500 salaries versus 40 salaries is a significant difference in terms of the cost of the product, right? So now you get your Gillette razor at the store, and it what is it, like $2 a cartridge? Well, if there were 500 cars in that parking lot making those cartridges, that cartridge would be $10 or $15 a cartridge, right? Right. And so in order to keep it at 2, they moved it to China. So, maybe you have 30 or 40 people now, 30 or 40 cars in the parking lot, managing robotics, managing all the infrastructure. It's not simple to do this stuff. I want to make that really clear. And that's a sort of play that happens inside of these things. It's like, wow, look at how easy this robot just goes and does this. Well, it takes a lot to get there. So there are people doing that, and that's what keeps the maybe the Gillette packaging done here with the robot versus in China by another person, another worker. So you keep the 30 or 40 jobs, because you're never going to get to the 500 packaging razors. It's not going to happen.
Right.
You want to keep the 30 or 40 because that's what it is today, right? Or maybe it was 5 years ago.
Right.
And of that to like, I never sell my stuff, but I know a lot about razors for a particular reason.
That's right. Yeah.
And so like that's a disposable product, and it's made in China. So this thing gets like produced there. It comes on a ship and ends up in you use it, a couple times and you throw it in the garbage. So we're just basically moving plastic around to throw it away.
So this is
all to keep it at $2.
By the way, let me put this back here. This is the Tesla factory in Fremont, California. And they have two robots.
Those industrial robots are more like what you see in industry.
What you think of. Yeah, they're repetitive. They do the exact same thing over and over again. And they don't adapt to anything. They're not walking robots. They're more like puppeted, programmed, just completion devices.
You literally they call it reverse kinetics, I think, or something like that. Anyway, you program the end point, and it's like a coding type of job. It's usually done in a 3D software. So it's kind of like CAD, but it creates something like G code, and then that's what drives it. But it's very specific. Like you code it to do the motion.
Right.
Now they do have as time goes on and vision systems get a little bit better, they will start putting cameras on, and they'll do like small decisions at the end, like the last little movement to line up, or
which is what the new one of the other bots does. I want to show something though in this. So this is he names all of his he's such a nerd, but he if he wasn't such a douchebag, he'd be kind of silly fun sometimes. But it's Iceman and Wolverine are the name. Yeah, he names all the robots after X-Men characters because he's also uncreative. But this is what I would like to show you, ladies and gentlemen. There are in this entire assembly process something in the order of 6 people. Two on each side here, and then there's others laying the things on there in the first place as they straighten these things out and they go through the process. He's in the process of eliminating these 6 people.
Right. And now he wants to run the government and get rid of all
everybody.
Of that.
So well, here's where here's where it works. Here's where it works. Government is a non-profit industry.
Exactly.
It really isn't. One of the things that complain where like we need a businessman to run the business. No, we don't, because a business making a profit. The profit of a government is the health, well-being, and safety and security of the people that it oversees, not the cash on hand it has at the end that it can hand back. That's not a profit. That's like giving back a dividend on a stock more than it's a profit. Okay, it's for real. Okay, so there are a lot of areas in roads and making bridges and all that kind of stuff where if you do it with robots, it costs the taxpayer next to nothing. Are those jobs that won't be done by certain people? Yeah, those are jobs that are going to be lost by people, but they can be done. The jobs those people can do can be for optional private industry, building buildings and skyscrapers and other shit, and can be hired to do that, and they're not competing for those workers from government projects that go on and on and on kind of perpetually forever. And so this is a group of people that come back on the market, right? Ultimately it ain't gonna matter because if he comes in, I guarantee you a big portion of what he's going to suggest is we can automate that, we can automate that, we can automate that, we can automate that. We can put chatbots on all the government phones. We can put.
I'll write the code, and you can pay me to do it. That's what he's looking to do. He's looking to extract money.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has nothing to do with just like making government better. No. He wants to take the cash, the taxpayer dollars, and he wants to put them in his pocket to go do those tasks.
Right. And if anybody comes along that can do it better, it's too late.
It's too late because he's already in. Exactly.
He's already in. He's buddies with Trump.
Buddies with Trump, and Trump just says no to the other person, because he wants to now have full control over the choice of contracts and with his 2025.
That's exactly right. and I feel like we've gotten to the end of what would be my normal show, and I feel like we've done a fairly good job of distracting with with Skynet everybody who is fretting about the election. And again, I'm not pissing away the seriousness of all the other issues that we're talking about, but I am pointing out that there is a historic precedent for the timing of Trump's new Operation Wetback, and it is entirely to do with him listening to, and the guys around him listening to Elon Musk and saying, we don't even fucking need these people anymore. There are any job an American doesn't want to do, we'll get a robot to do it. I can do it super fast. Even if he's bullshitting, even if it'll take way longer to do than he says, that's what he is selling. And they are buying it.
Yeah. And I'll try to figure out how to articulate it a little better. But this thing I was talking about misinformation, I think is super important, because as we come out of this time and we want to blame something, it's really important, I think, that, post-mortem, I think Harris did the best job she could in the situation she was in.
Agreed.
Before this all happened, we thought you'd ask anybody who was on her side, how was her campaign? And they would have told you it was great, right? Yep. And so people are only crapping on her now because she lost, right?
Right.
But why did she lose? And if we start to connect these things,
they crapped on Biden and he won.
Why did the people?
Jesus Christ! They crapped on Biden and he won. Biden won,
exactly.
and they spent nothing.
By the way,
right. Go ahead.
The map in 16 and 20 and 24 looks eerily similar, and the margins are eerily equal. They just go back, she lost by about as much as Hillary lost by, and Biden won by, the opposite way. So
Good old
they're literally
sexism.
just flipping inside these margins of
Right.
200 and 300,000 votes. That's it. Across the blue wall, I think it's under 200,000, isn't it? Right now?
Yeah.
At any rate, my point is that we really need to look at the why people believe what they believe. And it's not about dismantling Fox, I think. I think you can come at it in different ways and solve the problem. And this stuff we talk about in AI, it can be part of that. It can be.
Yes.
We just need to work on it and figure it out.
You and I, here's what I would like to do. You and I are going to, as our little side project, using the access to the AI that we both use, we'll start working on, bot spotter software or something like that. And then people can just, there's already some websites that do it that you could reference and make it just a click button and, reference off there. And then something that on your phone, if you're using social media, you use it through this app. Open them within this app, and it will highlight fake accounts. It'll turn them orange or whatever. That should be doable, and it's a project that you and I could probably work on as an app that people could download or use on their phone, or on their computer anytime they're using these things.
AI is currently not great at recognizing what's AI, but this is maybe outside of the purview of what we could accomplish. But I mean, if there were a social media company like a Twitter clone, specifically, I always think of these things as we can show how it's done just by doing, right?
Yes.
And so, what is it? There's a Mint Mobile, their beginnings of Mint Mobile was they wanted to be really cheap or something. REI kind of is that type of company where they want to be ethical, or I can't remember what their spin is, but it's specific. It's specific to what their mission is, right? If there were a social media company whose specific mission was to say, we're just going to do this. We think the law should be this, so this is how we're going to run our system.
Right.
I would think that would be a reasonably good selling point for people to stay on. I mean, again, we're not going to start running a social media company. I'm just saying, the way these things might happen. Yeah, well, I mean, with a little chat GPT, you never know.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, you basically scrape Ning's software, and which is that.
I mean, it wouldn't take too much to copy what Truth Social did because they stole
Not at all.
everything.
Well, it's fucking, that's
And they didn't
Mastodon.
give
He
any
just ripped
credit.
off Mastodon.
It's all open source.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get my idea. Like the idea is, like we can't get caught up in like trying to fix something that's unfixable. Right?
Yes.
We need to come at these things in unique ways and just by doing. And that's how I want to start trying to think about these things that we talk about on Friday as well. Like, and how they connect, like, because it's all connects. These conversations are complex, and
Yes.
they can't. And you, in this like post-truth thing, you can't talk about how AI and robotics are going to integrate into our lives because it affects us in very crazy ways. And yeah, we're going to have to figure out how incomes work again, or how they work differently, and how Social Security works, and those things have to be done. And so like the cost of I remember there was a comment in the chat about like what happens when automation like stops, people don't work as much, and then now we don't have Social Security to pay to the people that are retired.
Right.
Well, one way to increase people on Social Security is to decrease medical costs or decrease living costs. So automation can decrease the cost, meaning that the money you get from Social Security can go further. Could be the same money. It's just, it goes a lot further, right?
Right.
Anyway, that's what I'm trying to talk about. Like these things are not obvious, and ham-handed Cleaver Trump can't. I mean, we're not going to get there with them. Like we just have to do.
And if somebody comes to them with it and it works, they're just going to nod and go, "Yeah, do it." That's his business model anyway. So
or steal it and claim credit for it.
Right. Exactly. That's well. I mean, there are ways you can layer that. We will talk more about this on Friday, and I appreciate you dropping in and letting me borrow some of your time right now. But again, I feel like
I was thinking about this earlier today and how it would connect. So when you started talking about it, I'm like, I got to get it out.
Yes, I appreciate that. And it is a very big thing that he is not, and the people around him, in large part, including Elon Musk, I don't think are intellectually capable of grasping. I don't think they can process it. It's hard for me to process sometimes, and I think about it all the fucking time. And part of it, the only reason I can't is because I don't have my hands on all the levers and access to the information I would need to make decision trees about what's possible. Right? Like, I think that's, we don't know the full limitations or the lack of limitations in certain areas. It might be that certain technology is already there and like, oh, poof, fuck. There's already a chip fab that the DOD owns. And if you just use that, you could make robot doctors, like that kind of shit. Maybe that exists to some degree, but I don't have access to the reality of that. And we can only go by what's commercially available or what's been leaked or or the logical extrapolation of if this is here, it'll eventually get here. And I gotta say, I have been, for a long time, I've been focused on what I would call the hoverboard fallacy. That in Back to the Future, he got that little hoverboard skateboard. For that to exist, your entire fucking world changes. The complexity of that device.
Anti-gravity, essentially.
Right, you've got an anti-gravity toy that you can ride around on that has seemingly unlimited battery life. What the ever-loving fuck? You don't have friction anymore. You don't need wheels. No vehicle would need wheels ever again. Yeah. Like, it's absurd. You
don't need rocket boosters anymore.
Nothing. You could get off the planet just by flicking a switch. So anybody could travel into space. Like, you could have invert gravity suits based on the same technology that push back against the pressure of space.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Like all the things. And you would get there before you would get to, and I made a toy. Like by the time it reaches the toy fuck around phase. Yes. By the time you made a skateboard that you sell, that that kids have access to, holy fuck, where is it everywhere else? And the same thing is true of like robotics in this, we're not always behind the DOD and stuff, in robotics and all these other things. I think commercial stuff is often the testing ground for a lot of things. And I think that's where a lot of these like prosumer robotics actually do happen. It's where Siri and all these things are having a major impact on the speed of how it works and what doesn't. But there's going to be
the military is currently going into private sectors and trying to figure out faster ways to produce things. And they are going like I think the major talks about tanks being controlled by Xbox controllers. Like they're combining, not everything is this like, $10,000 hammer, like, or toy, like,
right,
which is a stupid thing too. But at any rate,
they don't exist. That's a way to hide money.
Yeah, exactly. I just saw something about C-130s having like a really expensive soap dispenser, and I'm like, come on, like, this is the stupidest article ever.
Because you can't list in a budgetary thing when you have people like Ron Johnson looking at them that they have a special like pulsar that stops radar from being able to spot it. So you put the money in the soap dish. It costs this much. For the soap dish, yeah, if it crashes, we don't want it flinging through and killing our pilot. Oh, okay, derp. And they sign off on it. Of course. Good Lord, we can't stop nerding. That's true, Gwen. We will never stop nerding, and there will be plenty to nerd about.
Midwestern nerding, so it takes.
Oh my God, yes, it's the Midwestern nerd goodbye. So, anyways, appreciate it. I will see you Friday morning, 9 a.m. for Friday AI, and we will start talking about what can be the solutions to some of this shit that we'll have to deal with on our own. Because your sphere of influence on your own life is going to get really fucking important if you rely on, the government, or you don't trust the government in what it's going to try and do. And believe me, go watch a sci-fi film that doesn't allow, about people not being allowed to augment themselves, as with robot shit or whatever. There's always these underground areas. Go watch Minority Report when he gets new eyeballs. Yeah. Like, because you get scanned everywhere you go, he needs new eyeballs. Like, that we're not there yet, but that's a good analogy for what's going to be necessary, right?
Totally.
So anyways, I love you guys, and thank you so much, and thanks Rob so much. I'll let you guys go.
Everybody in the chat as well. Good to see you all, and thanks, Al. We'll see you on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. See you Friday. Okay, take care.